I don't think so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Okay, just want to make sure.
Hi, how are you?
Hi,
Yes,
how
I
are
can
you?
hear you. I'm
Good.
doing good. Doing good. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. I was just trying to make sure I could get everybody in the room and all that good stuff. So,
That's no problem.
all right. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in because it's 6:30 and I think I can keep an eye on both of it. I've kind of moved a screen over here. So you guys should be able to see my opening screen, which has got a Slido on there. I don't know if I've ever used that or not, but in a minute we're going to have a slide where we're going to have you provide a little feedback about what in your view, what are like the biggest issues right now in terms of kind of what everybody's dealing with TDLR and thinking about the upcoming legislative session. Maybe you've heard something we haven't heard or these kind of things. And so it's just something we're kind of wanting to keep an eye on and knowing what everybody knows and what everybody thinks they know or kind of what you're anticipating or expecting. We don't want anybody to create like any mass hysteria or anything like that. But I'm going to reshare this because I don't like the way it's looking on my side. Hold on just a second. It's got this thing that I want to dismiss and it's not letting me dismiss it. It would help if I didn't have like 4 screens going here. So hold on. Here we go. Now I've been able to dismiss it. Let me share one more time. There's Pandora. That makes me feel better that I'm seeing her pop in because I was a little anxious that something might be going on or something and it wasn't going to work. So I'm glad to see you here. Welcome. And Alicia is here. Let's see, Jennifer Painter. I'm looking at all the people I can see in the room. So I'm excited to see some of you guys here. Let me share that over again, see if we can get it going then. I was explaining I was going to use Slido in just a few minutes to capture a little feedback from people to kind of see what everyone thinks as far as what they view as being some of the largest issues right now that we're dealing with, just so we could kind of begin to collaborate to maybe craft a response or develop a plan, develop a plan to where we can have a large number of people working together in the same type of avenue. Because I think sometimes if we have a bunch of people doing the same thing, it captures more notice than if we just have this person calling, this person emailing, this person going, this person sending a letter. So I've got a couple of ideas. I have no idea if anything will work, and that's why I wanted people here to collaborate on this. So just what we're going to talk about today are kind of what are the real issues as we stand today, advocacy, who to contact and what to say. And that's one reason why I reached out to Pandora and Alicia to make sure that there were some other people here tonight, because I know what I know, but there's lots of things I don't know. And I believe in the power of collaboration. That's where we're going to find our real power. And so when I started trying to research when we had all these problems with shears, because I saw TDLR present and talk about shears 3 times over the course of the summer months. And I know a lot of you did as well. And some of the things that appeared once it opened up to you guys had never been discussed. And I think our conference was the last one before they shut down and reopened. And I don't think they were deliberately not explaining anything. I think they didn't know. I don't think they have they're not involved in that back end of programming things, like maybe like they should be, or maybe like, I don't know. I have no idea. I feel like the presentation I saw at the end of July didn't reflect what we saw when Shears closed and reopened, but I could be the only one that feels that way. So I hope this Slido is going to kick in here. There we go. So this should allow you to kind of type in there, or you can come off mute if you want to. You don't have to type, but I would really like to hear from some of you to know what you think are the biggest issues that we're dealing with right now today.
I'll start us off. Can you hear me?
Yes, Vanessa?
Okay.
Yes.
I just believe it's so crazy, first off, right? But entering students that are getting this verification, what are we supposed to do in the meantime of waiting for them? I waited online for 2 hours and they were only able to tell me just to send an email. We had a school that got inspected, and I don't know if anybody from Crystal City High School's on, but they got inspected, and I was just curious if anyone got any other information. Like, I was able to enroll for the core class, but not the specialty, and they said we have to have both permits. So I don't know what to do.
Anybody else ran into that so far?
Yes, I have. This is Alicia. I actually have had problems with that myself, and I contacted them 2 weeks ago, and I never had a response. And I re-emailed today and was actually able to speak with someone and actually got to say whatever I wanted to say. You know how that goes. And so what I've been told is that it was never intended to be the way that it is. That it was never intended to be with 2 permits. And I explained to them, well, it is, and so it needs to be fixed. And so what I was told is that there is a possibility that it is going to shut down again, and we're going to see something else.
Okay.
So
I'm guessing that may be the reason why they ended up not having the training and canceled it when it was scheduled, because, yeah.
And that could possibly be why.
Okay. And we've got a couple of things on the Slido saying collaboration between TDLR and other federal and state agencies. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing that I do know about recent legislation that TDLR that's been, that's already done. They really, Pandora, tell me if you agree with me. You may completely disagree, but in my view, they have all of the power regarding cosmetology and barbering right now. And even like the most recent changes to the rules were around the advisory committees. And really, it was just language that was being removed that was no longer needed. But I can tell you in my letter that I've been working on, I know that they haven't shown an advisory meeting since 2022. And if there's been one, that's correct. Yeah. So they're obviously not using their advisory committee, and there's actually nothing that forces them to even meet with them. It's at their discretion now to call those meetings when they feel it's necessary. So all of these changes, anything that's been done since 2022, they've had zero input from their advisory committee on barbering and cosmetology. And I think that's very important moving forward, because that's definitely something that needs to be addressed in this upcoming session. That will need a change, and legislators are going to have to support us in that. And here's the thing, that's not just us as an advisory committee, that's all of their advisory boards. It affected everyone. So they don't have to meet with any of them unless they think they need to. And they really don't need them. They can do whatever they want now. And lots of things that they could change just because they want to, or because they feel like it would be a good idea, without any legislative action at all. And then transferring from one course to another is the biggest issue. And so can you tell me which course you're transferring from and where you're trying to transfer to? They gave themselves this power in the legislative sessions, Kim. It was just, that's the way the bills were written. And one thing I can tell you that I really haven't talked about a whole lot, because I was in kind of a weird situation, but I was consulting with a school a couple of years ago. Well, it was in the last session. That's a high school program that has put in a big career center, and they have a lot of businesses, not just a salon, but they have a lot of businesses on their campus. And so when they started working on this, I knew that that was going to be hard to get that salon licensed, because they were going to have it open where you could walk through. I was like, no, you got to have a permanent wall, all these kind of things. I don't know that they ever actually licensed the salon, but it was in it. The career center's actually named after a representative that's still in office. So we reached out to him and said, hey, we're going to need a bill on this, because right now it's not allowed. And so he wrote the bill, and it went, y'all may remember it, it went all up and through there and everything, but they sent it to me to look at first because I was consulting on this. And somebody at TDLR wrote the bill, so that's the way that works. They say they have nothing to do with it, but when a representative needs a bill written, they reach out to TDLR and have them write the language. I mean, and so I still have that email. And, so every time I hear somebody say, we don't have anything to do with it, I'm like, oh, that's such a bunch of crock of crap. They actually do have something to do with the way these bills are written. So anyway, the transferring from courses, who was that and what are you trying to do?
That is me. I'm going to turn my camera on. Okay.
Okay.
So
Jennifer, remind us where you're at. What school are you at?
I'm with Central Texas Beauty College in Round Rock and Temple.
Okay.
And so we started 2 new programs this year, the manicuring esthetician program and the full barber course. And with all of the changes, I had so many questions, and we've had TDLR come to our school for career fairs just to answer questions and whatnot. And there's a woman that I met named Angela Sanders. I've talked to her about some of these issues, and she suggested that I send her all of my different scenarios, and she would put it in the right person's hands, and they would get back to me. And that right person is Lorraine Strauf. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. And she wrote me back. And I would love to share this email with y'all, because to me, this is what TDLR is saying. If y'all want to send me your email address, I would be happy to.
Does it essentially say that it's they can't transfer the hours because they go in core or specialty and blah blah blah? Is that what it's saying about transferring?
No. So
okay.
So let me see. Okay, so one example, student is enrolled in a cosmetology course and completes 500 hours. The student now wants to transfer to a 1,000-hour barber course. How much credit can be transferred to the barber course, if any? And she wrote back, if the student is enrolled in the cosmetology operator course, the 500 hours would be applied as dual credit towards the barber course if the student enrolls in the barber course. There is no transfer of hours. So that's one question. I had other questions about, let's see, okay. And I don't know what y'all would be interested in, but I had several.
Well, in that particular scenario where they're going between cosmetology and barbering. So here's the thing. What Lorraine said at our conference was that we said, well, because when we knew there were going to be 2 permits, we didn't know there were going to be 2 permits. We knew there were going to be 2 areas to submit hours. Like there was going to be core and specialty. And, I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me, and anyway, because I mean, really, if y'all just think about this for a minute, the majority of people that we're talking to here are, a lot of you are on credit hour, but we still have a lot of clock hour schools. Like Alicia's one of them. So I want you to think about going back to the old days when you were running your time clock report. Now you're going to take that report where nobody's hours are the same and figure out what goes in core and what goes in specialty. how in the world are you going to document that? You know, like I can't even get my brain wrapped around that, because what we said is, well, you would just put the first 700 in core and then you put 300 in specialty. And Lorraine said, no, because that's not what you're teaching them. Like if they transfer somewhere else, they need to know they've had this much core and this much specialty. Like, oh my gosh. So in your case, because all those 500 hours were probably put in core, yeah, it's going to move right into barber. But all this is going to get so messed up if people don't continue to do that, because I mean, if you're a student transferring in, I don't want to see that. I want to know how many hours you have and how many hours you need. And that's all I want to know. I don't want to see this specialty with 27.65 hours. And no, even then, what specialty was it? Was that eyelashes? I mean, it's not broken out in any way, shape, or form. So I think they're going to have to rethink that part. That would be my thing. But as far as the transferring between courses, the bigger issue is going to be students who have a 600-hour manicuring license and now they want to go into cosmetology.
So
And,
would you like
you
me
know,
to tell you what she said about that?
yes, that I'd like to know.
Okay, so but I'm getting different answers because I've had other people call TDLR and they tell me something different. But what she said, if they already have a license because what I wanted to do is put them in my Mani Esty course. So she said if they already have a manicuring license, they would have to retake the full esthetician course. If they are currently enrolled in a manicuring course, then they would transfer the hours to the manicuring esthetician course. And I have to provide a transcript. Let me see. A transcript review would be required, or they have to enroll in the additional course.
I mean, so let me share this one screen over with you before we dig a little bit further. And then maybe Pandora, this is where you can jump in, because I don't know if I'm on the right track with this or not. And that's really the reason why I wanted to get you guys together tonight, because I've been working on a letter that it's linked up in this slideshow that I'm going to send out to you guys. And these are really just, this is a big, huge, long letter. I'm not saying anybody's letter needs to look like this letter, because this is a really big letter, right? But let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger for you guys. Hold on. Okay, so what you're talking about there is where I'm, I mentioned here that basically the changes were all these changes that have been made since the reduction of hours, since they abolished the instructor's license without even bothering to grandfather in those of us that had it, and then when they've combined the regulation of administration, all of these things were supposed to remove barriers. When you talk to people on the Sunset Commission, they tell you it's supposed to remove barriers for people entering the workforce. And that's not what's happened. It's become the opposite, in my opinion. And so, like I said, they haven't met with the advisory board since 2022. And to tell you the truth, at this point, I'm glad they didn't, because it's just something that we can complain about. Because we should be complaining about that very loudly, because it's just a disregard for expertise, and they need that expertise to guide policy making in the field. The only expertise they have on their entire team is the fact that, if anybody's ever talked to Lorraine, I know you've heard that she's got a daughter that does aesthetics. So that's it. So anyway, that's one thing. But those of you that are at colleges, this is the part that I keep trying to research on and get some information on. Anybody that I know that's an attorney doesn't have any specialty in this area, but programs that are accepting funds from Perkins, those federal funds, part of the Perkins 5 legislation stated that credentials had to be stackable, that they had to increase in rigor and be stackable. And so, I view there as being a problem here with the unstackability of our training, because if a student has demonstrated mastery of infection control in a manicuring course, they should no longer have to pay for or receive training around infection control in manicuring. But if any of that knowledge is foundational in terms of like bacteriology, you know, all of the different things that we teach them in infection control, but they really shouldn't have to repeat that. And they certainly shouldn't have to pay for it. And right now, that's what they're being forced to do. So these credentials should be stackable in a way that once they've demonstrated mastery here, they can move on. And now they can further their career by taking more training. And so anyway, Peanut, do you know if I'm on to anything with that in terms of how they have this curriculum set up?
No, because we're just having trouble right now as a college between our TDLR hours, that 37.5, because we're course completion, and our WECM hours. All three of those are speaking a completely different language and a completely different math, and none of it is adding up with the 700 and the 300. We're going to have to go all the way back through curriculum and create all new courses that will, hopefully we can get to jive between all three of those organizations. Because when you do the math with the 37.5 for TDLR, it does not come out remotely close to WECM's math, which is like our community college licensing.
Right.
You know, and we use Carl Perkins for a lot of things, mainly just equipment and like Skills USA travel, stuff like that. And then education for, the educators. But
to my knowledge, I don't even know that it matters what you're spending it on. I think it matters that you are receiving it, that the educational institution is receiving Perkins, because it's supposed to be to support career pathways that are designed to be accessible and stackable.
Right.
And there's very clear definitions about that.
See, now stackable, that's the first time I've heard that term. But we have an entire department that just does Perkins stuff. There's one woman that coordinates all of that, and she does it for all of our various different tech courses, regardless of, so for us, it's not just cosmetology, it's
everything.
And yes. So, and sometimes we do kits, like scholarship type kits and things like that through Perkins. So I don't know, but the stackable term is something that I haven't heard talked about before. This is the first I've really heard that term.
Well, I just think it doesn't even make sense. And it's not the first time that we've talked to them about this. Like I've got emails back 3 years ago, 3 and 4 years ago, when they were doing the alignment on curriculum to go from 1,500 to 1,000 hours with suggestions, huge spreadsheets that we spent a lot of time working on to send in with suggestions. We never got a response. We never heard anything back. And, and it was designed to remove the redundancy and, to keep students from paying for training that they don't need. They have this thing in their head that the aesthetics license and the manicuring license is specialty, but there's not any services. I get that. I understand that, but there's not any services that they can perform that I can't perform as a cosmetologist. So I didn't do that. I didn't make that up. Like, I'm not the one that defined the services. That's in the law. So that's just the way it is. It shouldn't require more hours if you take it one step at a time than it does if you do the whole thing at one time, unless I want it to. If I want to go take specialty training to learn how to be an advanced skincare specialist in microdermabrasion or something like that, then I can go do that training. But I'm talking about to get licensed. It shouldn't require more across these licenses. So
they've screwed themselves is what they've done.
Oh, yeah.
They thought they were going to make this so easy. And what they've done is screwed themselves because their math's not working. They open this giant box and they cannot fit anything in it.
Right. And that's what we told them 3 years ago. So I don't understand.
And-
It's just it just you feel completely dismissed. So I
Yes.
also had in here abolishing the instructor's license without grandfathering in individuals who had paid for and completed the required training. I've tried to
Yeah.
talk to attorneys about this quietly because I really kind of felt like everybody just needs to let it go. It's gone. It will never come back. However, it has come back in one state. So, then I'm thinking,
Oh, that'd
well,
be
I do
great.
think not having instructors is an issue, and I please don't want any of our teachers that don't have an instructor's license that are working in the field to think that that I'm saying they're not capable. I believe anybody's capable. I do believe that there should be some type of required training, even if it's not a license, because who helps them with shears? It's obviously not TDLR. The average cosmetologist, until I went to and got my instructor's license, I had never heard of shears. So that's kind of the role we feel with trainings and things like that. But it, I don't know. Anyway, I feel like professionals were stripped of a credential that was required by law to gain employment. And I do think that there's some violation of civil rights there in some way, but I'm not an attorney. And so it's just finding the right person. So I'm just really sharing information with you about my thoughts. And then the decision to forego ensuring that students demonstrate the ability to benefit from training, I think that has further weakened the effectiveness of educational programs. Maybe not with barber programs, because I just took the barber written test. And if they tell you that they're written on the same reading level, that's not true. The barber written test is a much lower reading level. And that would make sense to me because they haven't required a high school diploma all throughout. And I'm not saying either one of the licenses should require it, but I'm saying that to say that the test doesn't have to be addressed when you're not requiring a general education, any type of ability to benefit, is simply not true. We know that's not true. And demonstrating the ability to benefit should be required in any educational program. I don't care if you're becoming a vet tech or whatever you're becoming. If somebody's going out and paying for training to go to work, I feel like it's almost immoral to not ensure that they have the ability to benefit from the training. So that's another point I make. And then just their overall management of the licensing process has been marked by a lack of unresponsiveness. They don't return phone calls. They're not answering emails. They're very quick to tell us that they only have 2 or 3 people or whatever it is that they're saying today. And I'm tired of hearing that. I don't think that's our problem. Okay, they make up rules and try to put the fires out. Yeah, they make up rules and try to put the fires out. And the thing is it's so unnecessary. Pandora works with Mary Lindsay, who is on the advisory board, and so I can 100% agree with you. I was sitting next to Daphne at our conference when TDLR was speaking, and when they said that, I looked at her and I said, Daphne, are they saying that we're going to have to split these hours into different columns when you're entering them? And she said, yeah. And I'm like, oh no, that's not going to work. And she was like, why? What do you mean why? Like anybody that's teaching in a school that's been responsible for putting in hours immediately said, oh my gosh, like Mary would have immediately said, that won't work. I haven't even talked to Mary, and I can promise you she would have said that. So, I think those are some of the other really, really critical issues here. And anyway, enough on that. I'm going to switch. That was my letter of recommendation. I'm going to switch back to this other screen real quick, and y'all can jump in, please, at any time. Don't just let me keep talking, because we're not going to get anywhere if we do that. Trust me. Stop that one. Now we're going to share this one.
You're going to send us a letter? Will you share that letter?
I will
with me?
send you that. Yes, I'm going to send it to you, and it's just a big long letter. I'm
Yes.
also going to send you the information that we sent to TDLR back when, because I want you to see the recommendations that we made. There were several of us that worked
Okay.
on it, and it was recommendations that we made, and y'all may not agree with the recommendations we made. But I will tell you, I think Alicia and I both have heard that in this next legislative session, it may be that they're waiting on then to correct this, but I have heard that there will be a proposal for a new license type that is hair only. And if they go that way, I think it may be because of suggestions that were made that we had submitted, which showed that. But it also showed to move from cosmetology to barber or vice versa was about 50 hours. Wasn't 300. So it truly showed stackable credentials. It did reduce the hours for manicuring, and it did reduce the hours for aesthetics. But
Oh, yes.
to be honest with you, if we're all real about it, we're talking about the hours needed to get the license. We're not talking about advanced training. One thing I've always known is that if the instructor license were to, or if schools, let's say that our industry became unregulated, you didn't have to have any type of education or take a test to get a license. Education will always be a part of our industry, always, because there's just certain things that you have to have training to learn how to do. So anyway, that's okay, Pandora. So that was the letter that I was going to share with you that had lots of issues listed in it. And I'm also going to share with you the recommendation letter that we made to Ray and TDLR several years back with these stackable credentials. So I feel like one of the first things that we should do is this is just my opinion, y'all tell me what you think. I think we should set dates, kind of like an assignment for all of our schools, and see how many people we can get to truly join in. And I want to write handwritten letters from teachers and students and cosmetologists. They can be typed, but I don't want them emailed. I want them mailed with a stamp. We can email it too, but I want them to get buckets of mail all at about the same time. And it needs to go to our reps. It needs to go to TDLR. The only other thing that I could think of would be like a phone call campaign where we spread it out on days, because we were able to get somewhere with TEA on that back when they were going to remove cosmetology from it not having a program of study. Because I was at Navarro College when TEA called me and told me to call off the Bulldogs because their phones were driving them crazy. But in this case, this is a different time. That was pre-COVID. This is post-COVID, and TDLR doesn't answer the phone anyway. So I have no doubt their phone rings off the wall. So I don't know that it would bother them the way it bothered TEA. But those are my ideas. I want to hear what y'all think.
Challenge in something like this, because I'm all behind it. I'll do the footwork, I'll do the calling camp, I will do all of that. But what I have faced in the last 10 years being involved with a lot of the changes that have come about is that there's like 10 of us that show up and that's it. We're not like the plumbers. The plumbers, oh my God, thousands of them show up on the Capitol steps. And we get literally like 10, if we're lucky, 10. And that's our main issue. It can't be just educators. They don't care about us. None of them do. Not one of my reps voted as I asked them to. And that was with repeated phone calls. Not one. There went my license. Not one. That's real demoralizing. So how do we, I'm still open to ideas. How do we get people together to actually participate in the future of our industry? Salon owners don't give a shit. I'm sorry, but Bottom line, and neither do licensed hairdressers. Unless it affects them directly right now, they don't care. They're like, oh, gee, I'm sorry you
Yeah,
lost your license. The
you
end.
will start to hear from them when and if there's ever a move to completely deregulate. That's when you'll start to hear from
Yeah,
people that are not
yeah,
involved in the education side of the industry, because then it directly affects them. But I think that I felt like the response I got from a lot of stylists and barbers when they were going after the instructor's license was that, well, they didn't like their school experience, maybe, or something, like they felt like it
yeah,
was too long, or when they were reducing the hours, it was like, well, that seems fine to me, because 1,000 hours would
yeah.
have been plenty, so I think that, yeah, if they work on abolishing that. Yeah, I know, Felicia, I understand that also, that they don't get funding, but the problem I have with that is that they didn't create this problem until they took cosmetology from 1,500 to 1,000.
Right.
Then that's what creates the issue. And so, I mean, really for me, I feel like it has to be looked at from the perspective of how much time does a student need to master what they need to know to earn this license and go to work. And I mean, I started out with a
Right.
manicuring license way back when, and it was 150 hours. The
See,
test
but they
hasn't
do need
changed.
more than that. 1,000 hours is
I
not
think they
enough.
do. No, I think
I
they
know
need
they
more than
do.
150 hours for manicuring, but I do think 600 hours is way overshooting it. They don't need 600 hours in manicuring.
Probably
I
not.
don't think they need that. I
But they
don't
need
think
more
they
than
need that
just
much.
sanitation. It has to be
Right.
more. It has to be about more than just the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Period.
Yeah.
Because
And
I mean,
some of it
somebody
I
has to
think could be
teach
an
these
issue.
people how to dress
It
hair.
it it should be what I think could be a help would be if the hours weren't a part of it at all. These clocked hours. Alicia's going to go no, because she loves her time clock, and I'm okay with people that like their time clock programs. I think that's great,
Right.
but I don't really know of anything else training wise that's like this, that's so time clock computerized. I mean, I don't know, there's things out there that are like that, but if it was more about the average program length and the competency, you demonstrate your
Yeah.
competency, then it removes all this stuff about this 500 hours not qualifying for financial aid, because that's the thing, students come in, some of them would be ready to go take that test and go to work in 2 months, and other students would need a year and a half.
Yeah.
So if it became about competency and reaching these milestones and passing, then I think that could be one solution. But yeah, it would
Okay.
reduce the student count when you can't offer aid, for sure, and I do get that, I understand that.
And I messaged Mary, and she said, yeah, October 31st of 22 was the last recorded meeting. And apparently she said they had one advisory committee meeting since then, but apparently it was one of the private meetings and it was not. So she's supposed to be going in October for another one. So the other meeting, can't even remember when it was, what was said, none of that. So yeah, they're doing whatever in the Sam Hill that they want, but that because they're not including their advisory committee, they're making bigger problems, more paperwork for themselves, more paperwork
Well,
for
you'll
us.
have to let Mary know. I definitely spoke for her just a moment ago, but I said, I am 100% sure. That may have been when you were off doing your thing, but I said, I am
Yeah,
100% sure if they had said to Mary Lindsay, you're going to have to submit these hours in 2 different categories, she would have said, that will not
yeah,
work. Right. And
exactly.
so
They all
anyway,
would, everybody would have.
yeah, I'm going to have to go back and pull the date wait, maybe it's on here. Hold on. These were recommendations that we submitted in May of 2023 when they were working on the curriculum, the technical requirements, reducing from 1,500 to 1,000. And we had seen some drafts with this 700-hour bucket, and we were like, oh hell, this is going to be a mess. And I immediately said in that conversation, what about students that are moving from manicuring to cosmetology, or aesthetics to cosmetology? Like manicuring to cosmetology, they were able to take the 100 hours into cosmetology because that's what was required in cosmetology for training. And the same thing with aesthetics, but I think it was 75 hours, which is such a joke. But anyway, the questions were never answered. And so I knew that was going to be an issue. So we did submit this structure that would allow for stackable credentials and doesn't require duplicated training that's already been mastered by the student. So this was like literally a huge document. And here was our draft. So I'm going to send all this stuff to you. And I'm not saying that this is the way that it should be, but I'm saying I want you to know that there have been lots of suggestions made and they've just been ignored. That's what I'm annoyed about, is that there's people that have been willing to help, groups that are willing to help, people that are willing to give advice and understand the job of regulating and administrating our industry. I know it's a big job for them, but I'm tired of them acting like they don't care. I mean, they're real quick to tell you we're their biggest group. And they're also very quick to say that they're not an education agency. Anybody that's been in anything with them, that you've heard them say they are not an education agency, that they are here to protect the health and safety of the public.
Well,
So,
and they'll also say
anyway,
we don't have anything to do with legislation. We can't by law, but I will be the first to tell you that when we
That's
were
not true.
working on the course conversion long years ago, I got a phone call from a lawyer from TDLR that asked me to come to Austin to a meeting with the representative who authored that bill that we finally got passed, right? But when I get there, it was me and whoever was I can't think of her name. She was the president of SIPS at the time. So they brought in the high schools, they brought in the community college, both of us. Ray was there, the representative was there, and so was his lead aide, and the TDLR lawyer. And they wanted us to tell them what it was that we wanted, how it could be authored and this and that. And as I'm leaving there, I'm like, wait a minute, if you don't have anything to do with the legislative aspect of this, why were you even in that meeting? Why did y'all call us to come up there?
Yeah,
it's crap. It's a lie.
and I mean, I know
They do
it just
whatever
so
they
happened
want.
with that deal last time with the Career Center and them authoring that bill. It just so happened that, the nonprofit, our nonprofit, which is like the main source of my work with these grants and things, doesn't say anything about cosmetology in it. And so a lot of times then when I start getting involved with cosmetology stuff, they go, we didn't know you did that. And I was like, oh yeah, that was my first love. So, otherwise I don't think they would have ever emailed me that bill from somebody at TDLR. And it was one of the attorneys, and they just wanted me to review it and see if I thought it looked okay. And I was like, oh my God, TDLR is writing this bill for the representative. So anyway, this was kind of an example. I just wanted to show this with you before I email it to you, because I want to share all of this with you. And we've got time here right now, a little bit. I want everybody to really look at these things, and I want you to really think about it. And let's think about these letters. And we need to, I'm trying to think of a timeline where a big letter writing campaign would be the most effective. And I don't really know. And I don't really even know what to ask for at this point. I want to complain, like to the Attorney General's office, and I want to get somebody to file a lawsuit against TDLR because of the way they've mismanaged the legislation. I mean, they have not done their job, but I can't figure out who that is. Because, Dan Patrick's not going to do it. Like the Attorney General, that's really the only people they answer to. They really only answer to the Attorney General or the governor. I just think it's, I don't know.
But we have to
who do you
keep in
complain
mind
to?
that our governor doesn't like us. or else he wouldn't even,
Right.
he wouldn't, I mean, that's on his to-do list. Every
Now,
time he gets
I
elected,
also thought we
we're at the
could
top of
have
that list.
that meeting that they have the commissioners meetings in, that room is very small. It's not very big. You know, when we were, the last time I was there is when they were getting rid of the high school diploma. And I spoke and I was pissed, but we would probably get some notice there at a commissioners meeting if we had a ton of people submit to give public comment. The last commissioners meeting, there was actually someone was there from Blade. Lily Benitez was there from Blade Barbercraft to talk to TDLR. Y'all need to go back and watch it on YouTube because it was funny. But you know, that might be one way to get some notice, but it would have to be so many people that we couldn't find a seat in there. You know what I'm saying? And just person after person after person, like a very orchestrated public comment where we were able to make a public comment and then the next person build on, you know, the next person kind of reiterate that, agree with that, and I want to add this. And the next person, I agree with all of that, and I want to add this. Because it would be embarrassing to TDOR for them to have a large group to show up to complain about the way they have mismanaged this, I think. I don't know if it would get anywhere, but that's all I got, really. So I'm going to send this to y'all to look at. These are all like a little card. What brought this about was another group was working on a stackable credential for Dallas College, totally unrelated to cosmetology, and they called them cassettes. It was they were going to take and earn this level 1 certificate, and then they would earn the second level 1 certificate, and then they would earn a third level 1 certificate, and then the fourth level 1 certificate gave them the associate's degree. Each one of those level 1 certificates had 15 hours in it. For 15 hours gave them 60 hours, right? And so this is kind of what we were looking at here. And so it was going to be this fundamentals was 100 hours across everything. But once you completed fundamentals, which was laws and rules, client care, business skills, bacteriology, all the things you see there, you didn't have to repeat that. That's done. You've got fundamentals. And so then you would have nail care, manicuring industry. And so each one of these had something specific to the license that was a 50-hour block. So if you moved between cosmetology operator and barber, you were looking at a 50-hour block, which would include, 150 hours. I'm sorry, 100 hours for shaving, which is enough. And 50 hours, because I think it's important to learn the history of the industry, career opportunities, allowable and unallowable services, and seeking employment. You know, that's a 50-hour block across everything. I think it's important to learn the history of all of these different industries. And anyway, that was our thought. Several of us worked on it, and I want to share all of this with you and let you look at it, think about it, complain about it, and whatever else. Okay, that's about all I've got. We're just about out of time, but I want to give everybody a chance to speak that would like to speak, or if there's anything else that you would like to add. And I don't want y'all to start writing letters just yet. I want to send it to you, and I want you to start talking with your students about it, because here's one thing, you know, she's right. I don't think the governor thinks much of us, but students will get notice. Students will get notice. And, you know, I think a lot of student letters is powerful. And shoot, y'all can definitely make students write letters. You can definitely make students write letters. You can give them a grade for it. Anyway, tell me something good, something else you think, or if you think we're on the right track or not, or if anybody knows anybody else that you could complain to. Students can then online complaint to, you can submit an online complaint to TDLR about TDLR, but I don't know who gets it. I mean, I can tell you this much. I've made 3 public record requests that they can't honor. They're very simple. And they keep responding saying, we don't know exactly what you're asking for. I don't know how I could make it any more simple. Like, I'm asking for these reports. They're public record. And they just tell me they don't understand. Okay. So yeah, I think they could submit a complaint. I just don't know exactly who gets those. When I got super frustrated, I looked up all of the commissioners on LinkedIn and started emailing them directly. And I got a response and I got a phone call. That was when Rebecca was still there. Rebecca called me and said, Brenda, I need to talk to you about. And I said, I'm really sorry, but I feel like I'm talking to people at TDLR and nobody's listening. Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening when I say TDLR cannot control unlicensed salons. They can't get out and inspect people. They've got people selling hours all across the state. They're not inspecting anyone. And now we're going to remove the high school diploma because my thing was schools are going to take advantage of students that they know do not have the ability to benefit from training. And they're going to have them take out private loans and, and they're never going to license them. And that's what I'm not saying that's happening, but we are seeing a large number of students that are testing on the written a couple of times and never returning. They test, they fail, they test, they fail, they test, they fail, and then they never complete. And I tend to think it's because they can't pass it. It may not necessarily be maybe they have the ability to benefit and they haven't studied. I don't know. All I can look at is data and tell you that students are being taken advantage of. And then our legislators are saying, but cosmetology and barbering, they keep default on all their loans. Well, give me a break. That's only going to get worse because there's no education requirement now. Lots of night schools. Yeah. And everybody knows TDL is not expecting. They know they're not inspecting. When they were at the conference in July, when Alicia and I met with them before they came and talked to everyone, that was the first time I got to meet the new director. And I explained to her that I'm working on my dissertation right now, and it's around barbering and cosmetology testing, because I've got a timeline that can show where these changes have happened and how these things have caused declines. But I said, but it's really interesting. There's a large number of schools that have opened that have never tested anyone. Well, I've heard me talk about this before. I have to wonder, why would a school open and renew their license for 3 years and they do not have a test record? They've never tested any students. And they tell me that can't be, but I've requested the records and I can't get them. I don't think they've tested anyone. And I explained to them, because they've allowed 500 hours of distance learning and on a credit hour school. So think about this, Pandora, credit hour schools, they don't put that in anywhere. It's part of their module. Okay, so talk about not defining something on a transcript. So I go to Pandora's school and I take 500 hours there, but she makes me do 500 hours virtually before I can ever step foot in her school. Okay. Then she drops me and she calls Jennifer Painter and says, hey, I'm sending Brenda over to you for her to do her second bucket of 500 hours. Now you can charge her for that. And I do that virtually, and I never step foot in a school. TDLR has no way of tracking that at all, because distance learning is not being tracked as a part of credit hour programs. It's only being tracked in a clock hour program. So I pointed that out, and Ray was like, whoa, we're going to have to take a look at that. And I said, well, I think you're going to find you've got a lot more schools opened, not testing students. So let's just look at who they've got enrolled and who they're dropping, because that's something that we can't see. Only the school owners can see it and TDLR can see it. So, anyway, I just know that there's schools out there never testing anyone, ever. It's crazy. Okay, let me see what, I teach barbering. I have kids that work the bar, so they have doorbells on the front door, so they know any search. Oh, yeah. I mean, Nancy, that's been forever that way. But, and I know the last salon I owned, I was at that location for over 5 years, and Denise Yao inspected me when I opened, and I was never inspected again. And that was a long time ago. I was never inspected again.
Well, and now it's risk-based inspection. So Nobody complains.
Mhm.
They're not coming out to salons. Schools, yes. Why? I don't know. We're so special to them.
Jennifer, you haven't been inspected in over a year. What the inspections that were taking place last year were some, I mean, I'm sure there were some schools that were inspected for not without notice, but the majority of them were scheduled. So they emailed and said they wanted to come on a certain day. The school people I talked to, the school people that I knew that were inspected received an email letting them know that they were coming and what to have ready when they got there. So normally you don't receive notice. I'm just saying this was last year. Last year they were emailing to set appointments. This was some high school programs and it may be different. High schools are a little harder to
Yeah.
get into sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, Rendon, at Dubisky, they hadn't come in like 2.5 years and came like in May one time.
Did you know they were coming?
No,
No? Okay,
they just
good.
showed up.
Maybe they quit doing that because it just happened, one of the schools that they'd inspected, I was working with them. And so we found out that they'd scheduled it with them. And I was like, what?
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else you guys got? I mean, do you think that sounds good? Pandora, when do you think would be the best time? Or Alicia, when do you think would be the best time, or both of you, to try to get students and teachers and people to send a whole bunch of letters at one time?
Anytime during the regular school year, I think. That's something that we could have the students do in that salon development class. I think it'd be a fantastic activity for that class. And that's like right now, it's our first 8-week class of the fall semester. So they're there on Fridays for that class for the next 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 weeks.
So do you think that it's something that should be sent before the holiday season hits, before November, or it should wait until the session starts?
I think it should be until when the session starts.
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then
because
then we'll kind of know what's going to happen. So you could have them write it whenever,
Yes.
Right.
And then just hold on
Yeah.
to them.
Yes.
Just hold on to them.
I mean, and
And
another
don't
That's
thing,
send
true.
stamps. I'll
I
send
mean,
you
why
those
couldn't you
stamps.
do
Just
that?
let me know.
another thing too is if we could get, students, if we could get them to Austin, to the Capitol, and let them actually go and take
That'd be
students.
cool.
I mean, that would be a huge impact.
Yeah, that would be.
So how could we do that, Alicia, where schools would let them go? Do you think we could
It could be a field trip.
we
Yeah,
set up like a
exactly.
legislative day?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Alicia,
Yep.
you and I might work on that then. Because if we set it up like a legislative day, then schools might be more inclined to let them go.
Yeah. Oh, we would. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't go with them, for crying out loud. Let's have a
Right.
caravan. We're all going to Austin, you know?
I think we should,
Yeah.
that's something that should be planned, and we should all show up together, and, we should all be
Mhm.
walking the floor and have our one pagers ready and see reps
Yep.
and
You might
anybody that'll
also
listen.
collaborate with your on-campus government instructors, teachers, and see if you can't do something together in order to help get those students to Austin, especially for any of the schools out that are further away from Austin, like in West Texas. It's very difficult for them to get funding and things like that. So collaboration between teachers a lot of times will help with funding issues and things like that.
I think that's a good idea too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can't find the slide in here, but I've got the slides. I know Alicia's presented that information to you guys before several times about, you're going to have questions about who you're writing to, who represents you, and and those type of things. And I have that on a slide, but I can't find it. Maybe I presented the wrong slide, but you know, we'll show you how to find all of that. I've already got that lesson written because I sent it out 3 years ago to teachers. I sent them a lesson plan with all of those links. So I'd like to see you, or if you want me to record it, I'll record it and you can show them me. I don't care. But, you know, something about how to find who represents them, why it's important to advocate, you know. And in my case where I'm at right now, my rep was Abbott came to town and campaigned against my representative. I'm in Rockwall, and so Justin Holland, he campaigned against him in the runoff election because he had already sent a rep, and that's all about the school vouchers. Justin Holland was one of the last holdouts, and he campaigned against him here in Rockwall to put Katrina Pearson there because she'll vote for it. So I'm kind of without a good rep right now. And, you know, but that's what you're going to have to do, is to get on your reps and such. And I was able to meet with my state senator's aide, but it didn't go anywhere. She was more interested in the instructor's license being abolished without being grandfathered than she was anything else that was going on. So.
Well, one of the other things that we're running into is that since there's no instructor's license, TDL or PSI, they can't hire anybody. They can't find people that have the skills to actually do the test. It is almost impossible for our students to test face to face in Houston. They either have to do it online or they have to drive to San Antonio, Dallas, or Austin, because they literally cannot get enough people to test these folks. It's awful.
So are you in favor of them allowing schools to do the practical exam on their campus and not having a practical?
No, I'm not at all. Because think about it. You're talking about these schools that are, you know, doing all this illegal stuff. And that would be like a kid in a candy store for them. You know, put names on the book, get funding for all these people, and then test them.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Nothing but crime goes that way.
I just get so frustrated with it because I feel like the bad administration and regulation of our programs is going to lead to deregulation. You know, because
it very well could, but that's what they
bad
want.
regulation and administration is not a good thing. It's just a bad thing. You know, it's a bad thing because everybody gets so frustrated. Shawanda, I see you have your hand up. Did you have something to say?
No, ma'am. I just forgot to take it down last time.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do have all of your email addresses because you have to put it in when you register for this thing. Now, if you didn't put the right email address, you're going to need to email me so you can tell me. Or if y'all all want to shoot me an email, then I'll make sure I'll know I have the right one. I'm going to put my email address in here in the chat. And I will send you all of these things. I'm going to go back and dig up that. I'm going to write that down, the lesson plan for your students. And send you all the stuff. And hopefully we can kind of get together and take some action. And I love the idea of a legislative day, because I think since we've had some schools pay for you guys to come to our conferences, we're on a lot of the vendor lists and such, you know, with the districts. So I think it just gives us the opportunity to say we were trying to do this expo for students and we ended up killing it. We didn't have enough. And you know what? I had sport clips and a couple of people calling me today wanting to register. And I was like, dude, I had to pull that. Schools were getting their budget September 1st. And I was about to have all these students registering. And I didn't have firm commitments from the people we needed to be there to make this happen. So anyway, just saying that might be an alternative to this, would be to have this legislative day for cosmetology and barbering students where, you know, you guys could we could do a free registration. But it still would be an official event rather than it just being like you coming up with this field trip to take them to Austin, because then they think you're going to go to the mall.
Yeah.
You know, it could be an official event. So, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to work on that, and I'm going to get all these things out to you. Give me a couple of days. You're welcome, Nancy. We're glad you're coming to them. So she's a little firecracker. We need to get you and Pandora together. Nancy's a little
Okay.
firecracker. She is. Yeah,
Like
for sure. All right. There's nothing else. We'll adjourn. We're going over a little bit. I like firecrackers, Nancy. So
Yeah.
good.
Me too.
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys
Thank you
so
for the
much. I'll
invite.
get this information out to everybody. You bet.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
Appreciate
Uh-huh,
that.
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
All
Uh-huh,
right. Bye,
bye-bye.
guys.